I guess the first time that I began feeling like an outcast is pretty much every single time I let folks or I introduce folks as to where I'm from. It kind of goes like this. I was born in Wisconsin because my folks are from Mexico. They met at a Mexican dance held in the state of Wisconsin, and that's the reason I was born there. One of the first times that I actually felt like an outcast growing up was, I guess the first time would be in grade school. And I had a friend who was a migrant, so he would only spend half the time at school with me, but we both spoke Spanish. And I remember we were speaking in Spanish and flirting with one of the other fourth graders. And I was told by the teacher, both of us were told not to use our native language. But I always chalked that up as my making fun of this little girl because we were flirting, so that was on me. And there's another time where I remember being stopped by a cashier at the local grocery store in the small town that I lived. She wanted to check my pockets. And so I didn't understand why I was the one singled out, but again, it was one of those things, the way I was brought up, maybe someone that looked like me had just come in before, or maybe I had my hands in my pockets. So that was another thing that I let go. Then there were times in high school, there was many times in high school where I was referred to as a beaner. And specifically, I remember a particular portion of the hallway in high school where all the guys, the cool guys, were hanging out in a circle before class began. And I would try to become a part of that circle, and inevitably something like that would occur. Again, another opportunity for me to chalk it up to, well, he was trying to score some brownie points on the cool guy spectrum. Another hurdle for me to be able to cross. Then I left high school and went into college, and I had an opportunity to learn more about my people living within this country, as well as the histories of other marginalized communities that make up this nation. And I started to connect a couple of dots and realize perhaps the incidents that I'd experienced in my childhood growing up were not as isolated as I might have thought. Fast forward to now, and I see a lot of what's occurring within this country and with the current administration running it. And I start to think that perhaps a change of perspective is what we need. I would say I felt most comfortable, and it was a sort of a safe haven for me, was when I was working in the theater. The theater and the magic that was potentially able to be harnessed in order to transport an audience to a particular time and a place through a character that I was portraying was unbelievable to me. And I wanted to learn how to do that. It was my space to be able to measure up to everybody else on the same level, to see whether or not we could harness that particular magic. And so I'm so grateful that I can be involved with an organization, Outcast Theater Collective, where we're able to do those types of things. We can do that type of art to transport folks to other places, but also utilizing the stories that make us unique. We all represent various marginalized communities, and especially with the type of theater that we are working with, we're able to create these unique stories so that they can become the main characters of their particular story. And we can create more of an awareness for the audiences that are experiencing this theater. And it makes me feel like I'm in the right place. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, given all the experiences that I've lived up to until this moment. So I identify as Chicano, and I guess I would say if I had to highlight or spotlight a particular thing that made me feel wrong for being Chicano, it would have to be my surrounding on a constant basis. I was constantly trying to fit in because I felt I was the only one that looked different or was different from everybody around me. You can look at my second grade school picture, I guess all the school pictures, and I'm only one or two of the brown faces that you'll see. But I don't know, maybe because I had been used to that, or that's been the landscape that I grew up with for the longest time, I just kind of got used to it. Or maybe I didn't. Or maybe I constantly felt I needed to be as good, if not better, than everybody around me. So there was a real push for me to try to excel at everything. So it was a great motivator, but at the same time, I can't deny having those feelings on a constant basis. And who knows, maybe that's what brought me into the world of the theater. Within the last 4 years, it's been somewhat difficult to hear the administration espouse these particular beliefs or make these ridiculous statements about the community that I represent. And it's difficult for me because while I know there are individuals or there are entities within this particular country that truly believe what it is that he's saying, heaven forbid this is the president of the country that's doing so. I know that it exists. And so in a way, it's sort of, it's something that I've always expected, but to actually hear it is still somewhat alarming. But it really makes me realize this disconnect, this other perspective. And in a way that it's being brought up to the forefront of our politics in this particular moment in time, I kind of feel, and perhaps this has to do with my upbringing, but I sort of feel, well, it's about time, you know, rather than it being brushed under a rug or hidden in some particular type of closet, yet it's still being thought about by this other part of the country. Now folks are really rallying around it, so we know what the true colors of those folks are. And I'm hoping the next step ends up becoming a real conversation where we, those of us that do not believe or do not adhere to that particular version of history or that particular perspective of what this country should be, have our moment to be able to create that conversation or create a platform to have that conversation so that we can finally nip this thing in the bud, if you will. So we can finally get this figured out and move forward. And theater, I believe, is a wonderful tool to help begin that conversation. I think the number one thing I enjoy about being part of Outcast Theater Collective is that it began with the group of us trying to organize and sort of setting a path forward to try to do this sort of work that I've described. I didn't believe that I would end up learning as much. I thought I was always going to have to push to get folks behind the concept of the group. And the past couple of years working with the organization, I've been pleasantly surprised in that I'm learning as much, if not more, from those that are making the group what it is. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. My name is Cornelio Aguilera, also known as Coky, and I am Outcast.